So, as the final video of October, I was considering making a breakdown on zombies of Star Trek lore, shambling reanimated undead that want to convert more of their legions for whatever reason, until I realised that sticking to canon, there's nothing that is quite like that. Be it fantasy magic or scientific pathogen, there has been no exact zombie in Star Trek. So this video became more of a search for a zombie creature instead. To begin with, I should probably state the 3 criteria for a zombie that I think makes for the mythology regardless of genre, and those aspects are: 1. It must be undead, or at the very least have perished and reanimated, even if the process is reversible or they are technically alive again. 2. That they are hostile to anything not a zombie as a priority. And 3. They can convert others into more of their kind. On the surface, I bet several things jumped to your mind in the same way as they did mine, but I'll break down the options that I thought up, and as you'll see they don't quite fit. The Borg are the obvious example. The shambling cyborg species certainly share a great deal in comparison with the zombies, and have even been compared to them on screens. However, while they seek to propagate through assimilation, spreading their reach and growing their number, at no point during the process does it require the individual to perish. You could argue that they do collapse a person's individuality, and in that way it's a kind of death, and I suppose that drones have been seen to be able to reverse necrotic damage so long as the tissue is preserved. However, this is more of a repair job in the same way that their cybernetics continue to be usable. I figure we can do better. So, the next species that jumped to my mind were the Kobali. These aliens are from the Delta Quadrant and long since lost their ability to reproduce naturally. Instead, they developed a method of harvesting a deceased individual and converting them into one of their own species, resurrecting and reincarnating them as one of their own. This ticks one more box than the Borg does, as the reanimated individuals does have to be someone who has perished first, and they are definitely doing this in order to propagate their species. So that's 3 confirmed. However, they're simply people. They're smart and have their own spacefaring culture, although some may find their acts a form of desecration. At the end of the day, the Kabali are not inherently hostile towards others. Maybe an assimilated Kobali would cover both criteria. Then there were the crew of the Saleya from the Expanse series of Enterprise, the ship of Trillium D poisoned Vulcans. These were hostile for sure, and their poisoned, withered look made them seem like zombies for sure. However, at no point did they actually wind up undead in order for the process to complete, and they were not seeking to make more of themselves, just enacting destruction. Another option I considered was the recently introduced rage virus infected individuals from lower decks. However, much like the Saleya crew, people afflicted by this pathogen were never undead, although they looked the part. Nor did they seek to make more of their kin. That was just a byproduct of their sliming and biting everywhere. Although like Borg, they were referred to as zombies several times due to the comparisons and the fact that they even resorted to eating flesh. There is a penal colony planetoid in the Gamma Quadrant visited in DS9's Battle Lines, where death is no longer a thing thanks to nanites in the atmosphere. If a person perishes on the planet, they are then brought back to life by them and fully healed, although they can never leave again as the nanites only function on this moon. But this is less about being undead and just simply repairs and brings back people as they were before. The Ennis and the nol-ennis, who have battled here for ages, are still the same people and in no way looking to grow or spread this technology. The Vians certainly look the part of zombies when ravaged by the phage. However, like many other mentions on this list, they are simply a sentient species doing what they can to survive. They are not undead. nor do they seek to spread their ailment. Hostile? Yes, out of necessity, but as a means of survival only. The final species that surfaced in my mind is the Voyager from Enterprise's Extinction, in that their planet was contaminated with a mutagenic virus that transformed compatible humanoids into new members of their species and imprinted that desire to return to their capital city, as well as their language into them. However, they're not hostile nor undead, although the mutagen was definitely created to repopulate their planet, much like the Kabali, except on living organisms. As you can see, we're getting further and further away from zombie, even though some of these finds do fit one or more of the categories. Eventually, I started searching outside of other species and looking for individual encounters, and one of the first cases of actual reanimation I can think of occurred with the ghost being from Sub Rosa, the ghostly alien Ronin that haunted the Howard family for generations did indeed manage to possess and reanimate the body of Felicity Howard, but this only fits one of the criteria, and barely that to be honest. The possession had very little to do with Ronin's survival, and he was tethered to a candle, like a lich, poltergeist, or Voldemort. The other instance that crossed my mind were the Organians when they investigated the Enterprise in Observer effects, but aside from them bringing Trip and Hoshi back to life, nothing else fits at all. So this is where I pass the question on to you viewers. Can you think of something that fits all three of these markers? If I had to pick a choice for the Star Trek zombie equivalent, I would be split between the Borg, Kobali and the crew of the Slayer, because the Borg fit most closely, but are completely their own thing. The Kabali literally are reanimated undead into a new life, but apart from that, they're just pretty chill most of the time. And while the poisoned Vulcans certainly act and are inspired by zombies, they are just unfortunate subjects of neural degradation. If you can think of something else, by all means, let me know below. I just thought this was an interesting topic to cover that proved to be a little harder than I thought, and I was kind of surprised because I would have sworn there was a 1-to-1 zombie comparison in Trek somewhere. So, until then, I've Brainsrick, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.